Welcome to the Q.A.C. Team podcast series with your host, Charles Luttrell. Our series features leaders and business owners in your community discussing the customer experience, employee satisfaction, and performance improvement. Our series will help share strategic ideas for coaching and mentoring through mystery shopping in a post-pandemic economy. And now here's your host, Charles Luttrell. Good afternoon, everybody. I am here with Joe. Good afternoon, Joe.
Hello, Charles. How are you today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
We're living the dream.
That's awesome. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Joe Gordon, and currently I'm the owner of Flash Crab Cake Company. And
Yummy.
Yes. Well, not just in Maryland, but yes, Crab Cake Company. I am myself and my partner of 37 years and husband, Jeff Gordon. My husband's been a restaurateur all his life, his entire career.
Okay, so it's not to be confused with Jeff Gordon. He's not the race car driver.
No, and I'm not Miss Michigan. I've had to tell people that for many years.
I can imagine.
Very funny story. When I was working in the medical field, doing marketing, public and media relations, I used to work for a cardiac company and had to call patients afterwards. And this was when you had caller ID. And I have to tell people I'm going to call you from my home phone. So it's going to say Jeff Gordon's calling. And it got to the point where people would literally call our phone and leave messages asking us to return a call to this number. So it would say on their caller ID that Jeff Gordon called them. So anyway.
Great.
Anyway, I'm married to Jeff Gordon, and he is my partner. Jeff, being a restaurateur, my background, like I said, is marketing, public media relations, and building businesses for other people. But in the year 2000, we finally were at a point with two young kids where we opened up our first brick and mortar restaurant. That time I was still doing my work. Jeff's vision was always to have a brick and mortar. And we opened here in Harford County, Joe Mama's Steak, Seafood, and Jazz Restaurant. So we were at Joe Mama's for about 7.5 years. And at that time, my father-in-law had been taking care of my mother-in-law at Alzheimer's for 13.5 years. If we'd be willing to sell the restaurant because he could no longer take care of Mom. And there really wasn't much of a question when it comes to family in terms of how we live our life. So we sold the restaurant. But interesting enough, it was during that time that people would call my husband Jeff and say, Jeff, will you make me 10 of your crab cakes? Will you make me 20, 50, 100 of your crab cakes? My husband's a very generous man, but at that time he was giving away crab cakes. And I looked at him and I said, Jeffrey, you cannot give away crab cakes. We live in Alzheimer'sville. We do not have a job. And you know how when you point a finger at someone, there's always one pointing back at you. And I have a lot of moms here.
That is so true.
That's when I started doing research. And as Marylanders, more specifically Baltimoreans, my husband and I had found that crab cakes had become a shadow of what we grew up with. And we really believed that someone needed to bring a good crab cake back to the marketplace at a fair price. And when I say that, having owned a brick and mortar, I understand the costs that are associated with the overhead. So I thought to myself, because I've always been the type of businesswoman who's very interested in what they call disruptive business practices. And the best example of that I can give you that people listening would identify with immediately is what Uber, Lyft, rideshare did to the taxi industry. So they took an industry that they knew, but they turned it on their head, if I may.
Absolutely.
So I started looking at the mobile platform, not as a restaurant on wheels, but as a way to distribute a product. So when I first started looking at the possibilities for Flash Crab Cake, and I have to say this, and I can't emphasize this enough, we spent, even though Mom, when she came to live with us, had Alzheimer's for 13 years, it was another 6.5 years that she was with us. And during this time, she couldn't walk, talk, or feed herself. So that was quite a family investment. But it also was a blessing in a number of ways, because obviously I needed that much time to do the research and development to launch my business the way I wanted to launch my business.
Right.
And at that time, I didn't really know the way I wanted to, but we brick and mortar restaurant. And with me not being the restaurateur, with my husband being the restaurateur, but I, as his partner, could see so many aspects of that business that when the time came for me to sit down and create, and I said to myself, so if I could create the perfect job for myself, what would that be? And I had a list of positives and I had a list of negatives. And on my negative side was no BG&E, no roofs, no employees, no liquor license, no back of the house, no front of the house, no carpets that need to be cleaned, no steamers in the basement. I could go on and on and on and on. But I also wanted to challenge myself because as a Baltimorean, if I'm going to open a crab cake company up, I'm going to open it up in Baltimore because if
Yeah.
I'm going to be successful, that's where I'm going to be successful. One of the things that I learned about the brick and mortar was, um, yeah, about in hindsight, because it's always in hindsight as you move forward about the brick and mortar experience. Very difficult. People think it's very glamorous. Very, very difficult, the brick and mortar, although it's what my husband did very, very well. But
Hmm.
I also looked at that experience and said, so we were in our 50s, I guess, at that time. And I said, it seems like we work our patooties off to take care of the people we love, to have the resources to take care of the people we love. And this is what Alzheimer's taught me. And what we give up is time with the people we love. And
Yeah.
if we give up that work to spend time with the people we love, in most cases, I'm talking about us average Joes, you don't have the resources to take care of the people you love.
Right.
So not only did I want to launch a mobile crab cake company, but I wanted to create a business from the beginning that was easily duplicatable, and that I could prove. And so, in my business plan, a 5 year plan and a 10-year plan, I wanted to be able to prove what I was saying was true. So, when I first launched Flash Crab Cake Company in 2014, and that was after 6.5 years of research and development, and when I first opened it, and for the first 4 years, I would stomp my feet and I would say, I'm not a food truck, I'm a mobile crab cake company. And the reason I would do that is not because of any disrespect to the food truck industry at all, because literally I sell food and I am in a truck, but I see things differently. So, like I said earlier, I didn't want to be a restaurant on wheels. I wanted to create a way that I could hold down the overhead cost, and have a means of distributing my product and building my brand. So
Hmm.
when we initially started, I sold one thing: crab cakes. My crab cakes in 2014 for a 6 ounce all lump crab cake was $10. And everything on my menu board ends in zero for a very good reason. Now, this is how my vision works. I see far, far down the road, but in order to prove that we don't have to work our patooties off to create a business that will equate to the type of resources we need to take care of the people we loved, within the first 5 years, I wanted to prove that I could sell 100 crab cakes a day. 100 crab cakes a day at $10 a crab cake is $1,000. 365 days a year, that's $365,000. You take a 33% off for your operating expenses. That's $250,000. So that's how my math in my mind works. I can take care of my family with $250,000. I can do that. Now, can I prove that? Can I do that? So that's on one side of my vision. That's a personal thing to
Okay.
prove and to create. And on the other side is, hey, I'm going to launch a crab cake company in Baltimore. And people looked at us like, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that?
Right, because it's Baltimore. I mean,
And
crab cakes are a staple.
and all the things that I'm saying, none of this will matter if you don't have the product.
That's correct.
None of it will matter. But what I started doing was then I started looking at the food truck industry. And I actually did research and development. I would sit there and look at the operations of a food truck and how a traditional quote unquote food truck operates. My vision was never to go sit anywhere. I don't want to go sit anywhere. I don't want to go sit on a street corner for 8 hours. That's not the vision that I had for my business. But I had to watch how they were doing it so that I could take the things that I saw people were not happy with in that experience and change them, because I was one of my promises to myself was no one will ever leave my window unhappy. How do you do that?
Hmm.
Well, I watched other vendors and what made people unhappy. And one of the first things I noticed was that I would look like, let's say I'd watch like a lunch crowd. I'd see people walk up to the window, they take your money, now they're holding you hostage. Your order's in. Everybody stands around the truck. They're on their phones. They're waiting sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. They're not happy when they get to that window because lunch is over. I started like detailing all of these different things that I saw that affected the experience that somebody had at that window. I also looked at how many people were on that truck in order to provide those services for lunch, and there was usually 3 or 4 people in a truck. And um, understanding the overhead and what it costs and how much prep's involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I knew that was not what I wanted to do. But then you
Mhm.
have to ask yourself the question, well, how do I change that experience? So knowing that I was only going to do one thing initially, which was my crab cake, knowing that I'm a Baltimorean, knowing that my children taught me both as artists, beauty, art, and taste buds are subjective. I said to myself, well, why don't I do this? When someone walks up to my window, the first question, of course, is, have you ever had a flash crab cake? It's a yes or no answer. And if it's no, well, here you go. And I'd give them, I don't know, a nickel sized sample of my crab cake.
Mhm.
There you go. Now I've accomplished two different things right there. Number one, I'm not trying to get you. I have no interest in getting you one time because I'm building a brand. And you may or may not like that because beauty, art, and taste buds are subjective. But if you like it, and I tell you what, the people that I have on tape, because my husband and I usually step away from the window at that time, and you hear things like, oh, Lord, I'll just slap your mama. Woo! You hear all this stuff from my fellow Baltimoreans. This was especially in the beginning. They just couldn't believe what they were tasting because it was what we grew up with, what we believe a crab cake in Baltimore should taste like. But
Right.
if you don't like it, you don't know how many people have looked at me and go, that's not for my palate, but I so appreciate you giving me that sample.
Mhm.
So the power of that experience, because they had a couple second experience. And I said to myself as I watched people walk up to windows, leave, place orders, all of that, I was like, nope, that's not how I'm going to operate my establishment. I worked when I was younger, multi-million-dollar operations with Giant Food. I worked for UPS, time motion operations, all so that I could understand different methods of operation and how they affect and how you can implement those things that you've learned into other businesses. So in my truck, think of Thrasher's fries
Right.
with crab cakes. You
Thrasher's
walk up to
fries.
my window and I serve you in 7 to 17 seconds. At
Wow.
full capacity, I pump out 125 crab cakes every 22 minutes.
Wow.
So when I go to work and I'm serious. And
Right.
I only go where I'm invited. But it took me quite a few years to create my brand because again, I had a different vision for my company. I was
Mhm.
never interested in just going and sitting on the street somewhere. You very, very rarely would even find me at a food truck event because it's just not what I do.
Mhm.
Now you'll see, like if I'm doing fundraisers like Humane Society, et cetera, there'll be other food options. And let's face it, not everybody eats crab cakes, so other options. But overall, the way I view my business and the way I design my business and the way it works, and this was so helpful during COVID for us because all of our friends who still had brick and mortars could not operate like this. And initially, so when I was first looking at how I wanted to operate Flash, one of my visions was, well, I like these what I call a corporate pop up. For example, I do corporate pop ups at least 30, if not 40 different places every single month, which means every single day that I want to work, because that's how I work now, I can schedule a corporate pop up, which means I don't have to schedule another event. I'll go to Evergreens in Columbia, which is an active 55 community, and you would not believe how powerful a 3 hour pop up is in a place like that because I go once a month. They know exactly how I do it. And I also do something called take and bake, which is wonderful because people not only walk up to my truck and buy crab cakes that are cooked, um, but they also can take and bake. And we
Mhm.
make the product fresh every day. So I might have a customer walk up to my window. I might interact with them for, let's say, a whole 60 seconds, which is a long time. And we all can be nice to anybody for 60 seconds. We can always remember that when it comes to the time that you serve a customer. But 60 seconds, that person might take a baker's dozen with them. Well, I just had a $280 sale and not a
Mhm.
$20 sale. And that's how you can parlay. And I say this all the time. My parents used to say it to me. Find one or two things you do really well and stick with it. One or
Yes.
two things. And that's what I wanted to do with my vision for my company. But that was just the beginning. Now crab cakes today, market price, are off of my truck is $20. They're $20 for a 6-ounce all lump crab cake. In
Hmm.
order for you to get a crab cake that tastes like mine in Baltimore, in Maryland, in a restaurant environment, you're talking $30 to $40. Now, 20 years ago at Joe Mama's, my crab cake for a 6-ounce cake was $17. I'm
Hmm.
$20 today, and everybody's well aware of what happened with crab meat during
Yes.
COVID and right over, because jumbo lump crab meat, we use many sizes, from jumbo to petite jumbo to lump. Nothing ever smaller than a lump, but we
Right.
we put it all in together. $64.99 a pound,
I
and
was getting
I've
ready to
been
say, how is the crab meat industry now? Is it still skyrocketed?
well. The
Inflation or
the cost, it's coming down a little, but
okay.
the biggest thing is for folks like myself, and it was funny because I heard Richard say it, and unless you're in the industry, most people don't really understand. But
Yeah.
we've had the same distributor for years and years and years, because blue swimming crab migrates. This time of year, you're not going to catch a blue swimming crab in the Chesapeake, and you can't.
Uh-huh.
You can't. So, at this time of the year, they're in Florida, they're around the Gulf, Louisiana. So, our um, distributors out of Miami, to be honest with you, and
Oh,
has
okay.
been for many, many, many years,
Uh-huh.
because we can work 365 days a year. Now, our business is such that we don't have to work like that now. Being 8 years of building a brand. And I want to kind of go back to something, because this is a great segue. I was telling you the first 4 years that we were operating, I would say, I am not a food truck, I'm a mobile crab cake company. I would say that, and people would laugh. But the truth of the matter is, at the 4-year point, I get a phone call from the Food Network, and they would like to honor us by calling us one of the 26 best food trucks in America. And I responded by going, are you expletive me? And they said, excuse me? And I said, okay, hold on. Let me tell you the story. No disrespect, but I will allow you to call me a food truck if you'd like. But all of those things are lovely. They're lovely when you find that you've pleased people. But I don't live for that. What I live for is when a Marylander or a Baltimorean tastes my crab cake and they look at me and they become a Flash fan. They know.
Right.
They know. They call me. They're having a function. I mean, I've been going from one job to another, and I'll meet a Flash fan at at the park and ride at 70. Coming off of 695 because they need to grab their take and bake for dinner that night.
Right.
But that's what I can do. You see, because
Right.
I'm mobile, and that's the kind of trust that my Flash fans have put in me. Um, it's very interesting. I planned on doing Flash for about 15 years, creating this brand that people in Maryland would know, positioning the product so that it's an asset, something
Hmm.
that could be carried on. But it was funny. The first year we were operating, it was very cold. And the first 2 years, actually, we'd be on the street a lot, because you can't build a brand unless people know where you are. And
Right.
I mean, we would be everywhere. I'm talking about from DC to Berlin, Maryland, I'm just everywhere. Wherever we were invited, wherever an opportunity was, we showed up. But when it was cold, we used to have artichoke soup and cream of crab and asparagus at our restaurant. And so Jeff said, well, I'm going to make a big pot of my cream of crab, and let's just put it on board today and see what happens. So we put it on board. People loved it. It was an adjunct. So I had two things, and now I could really play with them at the window. They could have a taste of the crab cake, a taste of the cream of crab. The cream of crab is gluten free, which is a beautiful thing to offer people. And it was a big hit. And we thought, well, springtime comes, it'll warm up, we'll stop it. Well, we have never been able to stop our cream of crab.
Wow.
It has become that popular. I mean, it'll be a 90-degree day, and it's not uncommon for me to sell 6 gallons of cream of crab soup. But there's another reason for that. One day, my youngest son comes home from college quite a few years ago, and I'm like, buddy, would you like crab cake? Would you like some soup? He goes, Mom, just throw one in a bowl and just cover it with some cream of crab. Boom, there's Mom's marketing mind. Boom, Monday. I test marketed the best of both. It's become my bestseller.
That's great.
Crab cake covered in cream of crab. And and now I take that experience where they taste the two samples. I say, just take a bite of half of that. Don't eat it all. how hard it gets, don't eat it all. And then I hand them the soup and say, now just squeeze half of that, don't, and then I have them put it together and squeeze the whole thing in their mouth like a Jello shooter, and it's a done deal. They
Right.
can take it from there. But also, if they don't like it, I haven't taken a penny from them, and I
Wow.
love that about what I do.
Yeah, that is
You
really
know,
cool.
so at least
Now,
people go ahead.
now, I'm sorry. I was looking at your website and I watched the video. Is that your husband that was handing out those samples?
That's my husband, my son, who's in the film industry now. He was just a freshman at Drexel when he filmed that
Uh huh.
for us. So that's when they were $10 a crab cake, as
Uh
it
huh.
said there. And then my other
Right.
son in the film industry did the soundtrack. I mean, in the music industry, did the soundtrack.
Yeah.
So,
It's a
so
really cool video. I like it. Yeah, it showed, the interviewing people, and your husband's giving out the little samples. It's really cool. I
See,
like
well,
it.
that was the very beginning, and that
Uh,
was what it took for us. But you could hear and see the Baltimoreans, and
yes.
every time we did that, it just reinforced for us that yes, somebody had to bring this crab cake back. And the truth of the matter is, I have so many families that yeah, we all love crab cakes, but you can't take the kids and all and hit a restaurant at $30 or $40 a head because then
Yeah.
you have drinks and you have tips. So let's be real about it. So part of my vision then kind of manifests itself into wait a minute, how can I why can't I just hand the crab meat mixture to my customers? Why can't I
Yeah.
just do that? Well, you can't just do that. Yeah, I'll have there are regulations.
Regulations,
There
right?
are government roads you have to travel down, which I
Exactly right.
then did the research and the development into, and it took me almost a year to launch that side of my business. But it's just an adjunct, as you know. And from the business side of things, if you're somebody that's listening that's trying to build a business, keep this in mind. Crab cake, cream of crab soup. No different packaging to go to the best of both. So because I had a soup bowl, that's what I served the cream of crab by itself. So the
Right.
best of both was the crab cake in the bottom, covered with cream of crab.
Right.
So I didn't have to add anything to production. Everything was there, but gave my customers a totally new offering.
It's a whole new experience.
A whole,
Absolutely.
and I'll have flash fans walk up and they'll have somebody with them and they'll go, "Hi, remember me?" And usually I don't because I deal with so
Yeah.
many people.
Hundreds of people a
Um,
day, right? I get it.
Sometimes thousands. It's insane. But I say, "Of course I do. What can we do today?" And they'll look at me and go, "Can they have the experience?" I said, "Yeah, let's give them the experience." And the experience is they get a sample both. So,
Yeah.
you create something for someone that's, again, this is what a disruptive business practice is. Now, when I'm rocking it, like Thrasher's rocks it, there's no time for that. But, this is all a study in human behavior because it's a very interesting thing when you watch this scenario. Let's say I happen to be parked next to someone who operates more like a traditional food truck, and the lines are starting to form. And you see the people over in the traditional food truck line, and they are looking over while they're waiting to get to a window to place an order at my line. And they're seeing my line move, but they're seeing the people walk up to my window and walk away with the bag within 7 to 17 seconds. And you see the light bulbs pop like, whoa, what is going on over there?
What is
But
she doing? Right.
well, and I'll tell you, I've had so many, it's funny because in the beginning, I would watch people that were operating traditional food trucks try some of the things, some of the approaches that we do. And remember that, my approach does not work for everybody, but,
Sure.
you know, I would watch them sample whatever it is that they were offering and then see people turn around and walk away. That didn't work for them for
Yeah.
whatever reason,
Uh-huh.
but it did. But I could see them take elements of what we were doing and try to apply them. But it's not a one issue thing. This is this is a broad spectrum
Uh-huh.
of understanding of how people work, how the industry works, how operation works, and then how to take your vision and do with it what you want. Because what I want to do is when I go out, is I want to hit, I want to serve 300 people an hour and work for 3 hours. Do the math. That's 900 people, and let's say my average sale is $20. Do the math. How
Yeah.
many days a week do you have to work like that to take care of the people you love?
Yep.
That's the question I asked myself in the beginning. But more importantly was, can I create something that I can show to other people? So even when we designed the operations of our business from the very beginning, like when my husband makes the crab cakes every day, he adds like number one, which is his wet mixture, to number two, which is the seasoning package. The seasoning packages are all made in batches.
Hmm.
So you don't sit there with a measuring spoon every time you're making crab cakes. No, you open one of those packages and that goes into your Lexan pan, and that's going to make 60 crab cakes. So
Wow.
these little things are already developed should the time come when I'm ready to give this opportunity to another person
Right.
when they want to do it. And I'm able to, more importantly, it's called quality control. Every
Hmm.
single time you get a flash crab cake, it tastes exactly the same. Every single time you get cream of crab, it tastes exactly the same. And that's very, very important.
Yeah,
Um,
we a friend of mine, we talked about that. I think last week or so, I had mentioned about, no matter where you go for McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, you get the same burger. You know, it's not
right,
different anywhere you go. And when
right.
you can duplicate that like that, that's you got something, you know.
But more than that is, yes, you have something when you have a recipe like that, but you have to have the understanding of the industry enough
Yeah.
to be able to pull that off, to understand what it takes to do that. Because I know exactly what goes into every one of those packages, and it is locked up in a lockbox in a bank. The recipes. Well, it
That's
is
awesome.
as it should be
It
because people
should
ask me
be.
all the time. They say, "Can I have the recipe for that?" And I look and I go, "Sorry, you may not. You
It's
may
like
not."
SpongeBob, right? The Krusty Krab. You got it locked up, man. It's a
Yeah,
secret formula.
well, but it's true. It's very, very
Yeah.
true because and people look at us. I mean, you can watch it and you can time it. They get that sample, they look at you, and it's 30 seconds later, and those spices are blowing up in the back of their throat
Hmm.
like they always did for us. And people also walk up to my window and go, "Hey, do you have the best crab cake in Maryland?" And I look at them, just kind of blank face, and I go, "Wouldn't that be arrogant of me to say?" It would be because beauty, art, and taste buds are subjective. I don't need to say that. I
Right.
don't need to say that to anyone. If you want to say it, you may say it, but that's not where I come from. This whole experience has been probably, aside from Alzheimer's, taking care of someone, the most
Hmm.
humbling experience of my life.
That's awesome.
Because I'm a Baltimorean, I get to sell crab cakes in my state. And as difficult as it is to find a good crab cake in Baltimore, it's even more difficult when you go outside of Baltimore.
Right.
And people don't want to go into Baltimore these days. It's kind of cantankerous at times, but we're known for that. And whether I'm in Howard County or Prince George's County or Queen Anne's County or wherever I may be in my home state, they're Marylanders. And when
But,
they go ahead, question.
but yeah, but you raise a good point though, because like Rofo chicken, right? Everybody's like world famous Rofo chicken, right? It's great. To me, it's just chicken.
Yep.
It doesn't. It's just chicken. I don't
Right.
find it any more appealing than Kentucky Fried or Popeyes.
Well,
You know.
it's interesting because a lot of people live and die by that type of thing. You would
Right.
never ever find on my truck where it says Food Republic named Flash Crab Cake is one of 6 places to get an excellent crab cake in Baltimore, and the only mobile platform. All the rest of
Mhm.
them are restaurants. People would know if you know where to go get a good crab cake.
Right.
I don't need that, and I didn't even know. I mean, all of these reviews about my business and what I do, I never even knew they existed. I mean, my sons call me from Philadelphia or wherever, like, "Mom, did you see this new review? Did you see what eat that, not eat this, not that? Just wrote about Flash." I'm like, you know, I mean, it's funny because I'm too busy selling my crab cakes and
Right.
loving what I do, and people having just this wonderful experience. And once you get a brand and people that are just starting out in business or just learning some of the or just coming to some of the understandings about business, um, wherever you are now is preparing you in some way to be able to create your brand, and it all starts with you and who you are.
Right.
But none of it matters if you don't have the product.
Right. So does
And
Joe Mama's steak and seafood still exist?
well, we sold it,
Okay.
and another restaurant went in there.
Okay.
So know the name. I didn't sell the name. Actually, the beautiful sign, Joe Mama sign, is a headboard now. So
Oh wow, that's
it's
cool.
pretty funky headboard. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
And
So
actually, all you have now is your mobile. Your mobile crab cakes.
That's all we have time to do.
Right.
Because although I'm sharing all this wonderful stuff with you, and there's a great vision for
Yeah.
my company, where I want to take it in the next 7 years, because when I launched, I wanted to give myself 15 years
Hmm.
before I retired. So this was going to be the last hurrah before I retired. And I
Right.
wanted to build a brand so that it was something that I could sell. I'd love to see Yummy Foods grab the Flash brand, and you'd be
Hmm.
able to get a Flash crab cake anywhere in Maryland. I would love to see something like that happen, but that wouldn't happen for 7 years. The thing
Right.
is, um, we made it through COVID 2020, but in March of 2020, so every single year up until 2020, from 2014 to 2020, I never saw a year with less than 28% growth. That was the minimal amount of growth that I saw in any one year. 2020 hit, and that March, I was scheduled every single day, some days doubles and triples, through Thanksgiving of 2020. And 2020 started, and everything stopped.
Mm.
Every business stopped. Now, brick and mortars couldn't even open their doors for a long time. I think everybody was locked down for at least 2 weeks or whatever. But I, by design, had at least 30 corporate pop ups that I could go to, one a day, every
One a
single
day.
day, with
Yep.
mask and shield and chalk and 6 foot marks and everything that was necessary for compliance.
Right.
But those people who couldn't move could walk outside of their building,
Right.
and I could make it through COVID. And I made it through COVID, as difficult as that was. And then
Right.
December of 2020, my husband was diagnosed with colon cancer.
Oh no.
So I had to run Flash Crab Cake by myself 2021.
Mm.
And still things were not open. Because of COVID, they were
Right.
not. Any federal building that I would go to, and do a hit and run. I call them hit and runs when I go for 2 or 3 hours. Any of those kind of things, the people were not there. So that part I couldn't do, which was probably a blessing, because there was only so much I could do by myself. But anyway, October 22nd of this year, which was one day before our 34th wedding anniversary, 37th anniversary of knowing each other, we were coming home from a double, and a young man at 21 flew through a stop sign, broadsided my truck, and flipped my truck.
Oh no.
Flipped my truck on the 22nd of October. And so we just found out about a week and a half ago that everything is a complete loss.
Oh no.
So, having said that, and knowing that I have a brand, we will be heading down south next week to look at a couple trucks.
Hmm.
Um, and I hope to be up and running by March at the very, very latest. So that happened. And, like I said earlier, you have to learn how to bend. You can't break if you have a clear vision of what it is you want to do. Um, I can't let my Flash fans down. I just can't. I mean, Christmas
Yeah.
was crazy. We went to our commissary, we made take and bake, and we had Flash fans coming from everywhere just to pick up their take and bake and to support us while we were
Right.
going through this. So the love has been just humbling. And
Right.
normally in January and February, we take a little break anyway, and try
Okay.
to get out of town. So it just
Right.
happens that we already had a trip scheduled to go to Southern Florida, and there are 3 trucks in Southern Florida that I'm going to look at next week.
Yeah, I was
So,
going to ask you how are you managing without a truck now?
well, actually, we just finished with therapy and stuff like that too, because the truck flipped, and
Yeah.
whenever and yeah, devastating. And
Oh,
the interesting thing is, because when we launched Flash initially, Alzheimer's was over. Both of my boys were out of college, and that's the first time that I was really dealing with that empty nest syndrome, or whatever they call that. Because
right.
so it was like, okay, well, Flash is our baby now, babe. This is our baby, so we're going to nurture this, and we're going to build it, and it's going to grow up, and it's going to learn to crawl, and then it's going to walk, and then it's going to run, and that's how we envisioned our business.
Right.
And then even with COVID, and even with cancer, and now even with our truck being flipped, you know you just can, for me, it's like, well, okay, the first 2 weeks were pretty dark. I felt like there was some grieving going on there, because I saw my baby flipped over and laying in the middle of a road.
Right.
But the baby wasn't dead, injured. The things that can be replaced are going to be replaced. We
Uh-huh.
can't be replaced. And so we're going to move on, and so I just keep my Flash fans um, in the cycle. The new truck will obviously work perfectly for the next 7 years. So 7 more years, and hopefully we'll be calling it a wrap. I was hoping that there are some visions for the company. I'd like to take it, especially at our age. I'd like to spend a couple months out of the year in a warmer climate
Hmm.
because I think Southern Florida definitely needs a good crab cake. No doubt about it. And that would just be a great place for me to sell crab cakes in the
Right.
wintertime. But also, Baltimore, the Baltimore area, is so important to me, and
Hmm.
and the brand. And hey, just to be honored, to be among those that people want to get a crab cake from it in my hometown, is pretty special.
Right. Well, I gotta say, you must have read my message when I sent this to you because you hit all of my questions, and I didn't have to ask any of them except the first one.
Charles, I told you I got my license. And the funny thing about it is when people work with me, not vendors or people that are buying, say, a wrap for a truck or something like that. And usually my husband keeps his mouth shut when it has to do with this side of things because he's
Uh-huh.
operational. That's what he
Right.
does. They will look at him and go, "Boy, she's a tough one, isn't she?" You have to give everybody a break. She's right on top of that. She's right on. But it's my business,
Hey,
so.
you said it right there. You said it. It's yours. It's your business. You want to run it the way it needs to be run, and you're doing a good job.
Well, and I had to respect your business because I mean, you sent me information. You told me how you operate, what it was you were trying to accomplish, and I just figured I was here to help you with that accomplishment. So, I've been honored to do this and speak with you today. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, I tell you, and that's the thing about this. When people respond back to me and say, you know, tell me more. What are you doing with this? And I said, look, I'm a small business. I want to help small businesses, and I want to grow with small businesses. That's
Right.
been my dream with this is interview people and get their story out there and help promote them. You
See, and the
know?
beautiful thing about it is how we help each other. Is
Yeah.
so then I go to your podcast and I take that link and I put it in my social media and I tell all my Flash fans will listen to it so they get turned on to you, and then I ask them to share it, to like it and share it, and then they turn it on. And it's the most powerful. As far as I'm concerned, I've done marketing for years and years and years, but um, to me, it's the most powerful form of marketing and networking that we have available to us today. So,
Yeah, that's why I chose to do this because, I don't know if you know, but I ran a mystery shopping company back in 2008 to 2012 prior, got divorced and things got messy and I
mm,
shut it down. And then here it is, I'm restarting and doing it again under a different name. You know, I found this to be very, very useful, you know, and people are loving it. And it's a great part of how to get into the door and talk to people.
but well, anyone, I would hope that anyone, because I talk to people all the time too. I mean, as you do, and they just come up to my window and they'll say, "Hey, I want to open up a food truck," let's say, and I look at them and I say, "Have you done your research?"
Right.
And they look at me and I go, "Now you have to do your research." For example, prior to me even building our first truck, what I did, knowing because we owned a brick and mortar about the health departments in our state.
Uh-huh.
If you live in Harford County, you need to know, and this is to your benefit. To your benefit, the health department in Harford County is one of the toughest in this state.
Yes, it is.
So you know what I did? I built my truck to their specifications. So
Very smart.
why would you say it's the toughest? It's everything that I do in my truck is just so that my flash fan has the safest experience. And that's what the health department does.
Right.
So that was my mentality. I built it for these specifications. There will not be a health department in this state that I can't take my truck to. Now, government, I mean, local, statewide, the licensing, it's insane what you have to do. And it
Right.
was so much different in 2014. They tried to help out mobile vendors by implementing what they call reciprocity license.
Uh-huh.
When they did that, there were a couple caveats that they did not address, and I certainly learned from this because I originally had my license in Harford County and in Baltimore City.
Uh-huh.
Harford County, it's Harford County, Then you have to have a license in Bel Air, one in Havre de Grace, one in Aberdeen to operate. You have to have a state of Maryland license and have a Baltimore City license. Now, any other counties or whatever that I wanted to vend in, I'd have to go and get a daily license. So they came up with this idea of reciprocity, meaning if you were licensed in one county, you could go to a neighboring county, and because you had that license, you pay them a couple $100 and you've got a reciprocity without having to go through all the planning reviews and all that kind of thing.
Because that's a
So,
lot of work. That is really a lot of work.
and that's why I say to people, have you done your research? Because
Yeah.
where do you want to operate from? Do you know the regulations in that area? Do you know what this is going to cost you annually? Do you understand that you pay retail sales tax every month? You pay quarterly, you pay annually. Do you understand all of this? Because you can't write a business plan if you don't understand these things, because you'd never ever know what your operating expenses are going to be. But here's
Right.
one thing that happened. When I opened up my, now backtrack, in Harford County, when I was licensed in 2014, it's important to understand, and I didn't really understand this clearly then because I'd never opened up a mobile company, but you have to have people in order to be able to sell your product. But at that time in Bel Air, there were only 3 places where you could park a mobile truck, and one was behind the mill, another one was behind the industrial park behind the mall, and the other was behind the clamshell, Shamrock Park. So those are the least three places where I would think where least people would be walking, or they
Yeah.
would see that you were there. So after a year, I did not renew those licenses, because anytime I wanted to work in Harford County, I could get a daily license for a special event. So I
Right.
was licensed just in Baltimore City. Now, when you're licensed in Baltimore City, you have to have a commissary that you're attached to, that you lease, and that has to be within a 90-mile radius of where you're licensed. So I'm licensed in Baltimore City. My commissary is on the other side of Taylor Avenue, right off of 695, which is excellent for me because usually I come down 95, hit 695. I can hit the commissary, do what I need to do. Although in my particular case, I've got a wet mixture, I've got crab meat, and we can keep making them on board all day long if we want to.
Right.
Okay, so I don't have to go anywhere. Very little prep. I don't have all that. I have no waste. But when I went to get a reciprocity just last year, because friends of ours opened up Hopkins Brewery and they wanted to come up there, they informed me at that time that the reason I couldn't get a reciprocity was because I am not licensed in the same county where my commissary is.
Huh.
I said, excuse me, I'm within a 90-mile radius. I know, but to get a reciprocity, you have to be licensed in the same county. So in Baltimore City, the only commissaries are on the west side of Baltimore. Not effective for me. Okay. So
Nah,
that's
that's way
why
out of the way. Yeah.
right. That's why I chose where I was, because it was, and a friend of mine owns this food service facility, and he has for years. And so it was excellent right off of 695. It worked, and
Right.
it was within the 90-mile radius. But the powers that be, when they were trying to be helpful with reciprocity, no one was in the industry and understood that 90-mile radius was in there, and then they put in you have to be licensed. So in my case, I have refrigeration, convection oven, NSF approved soup holders, and that's all I have on my truck. That's all I need. I have no oil. I have no open flames. I don't need any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
But in Baltimore County, to get a license, you have to have what they call an ANSEL system, which is a fire suppression system. Understandable when you have open flame or oil. It's mandatory. In a restaurant environment, it's mandatory. My truck, it's not. But for me to get the license in Baltimore County, I have to now go through an appeal process
Wow.
and bring the fire people in, and they have to prove my case,
Oh,
which is
geez.
insane. But I'm
That
going to
is.
eliminate that with the new truck. By my next truck will probably have an ANSEL system in it, even though I don't need
Just
one.
have it built in if you don't need it. Right.
Well,
Exactly. That's
exactly,
smart.
because because you see your licenses are attached to your truck.
Right.
So now that other truck is a total loss, the new truck will have the new licenses. So I'll just go right to Baltimore County. My commissary will be right in Baltimore County. Now Howard County, Harford County, Baltimore City will all be reciprocity licenses.
There
But
you go.
had I not experienced what I experienced, and you see, this only comes through working your dream, working your business. I heard Richard mention a lot of the things that the way that he evolved, with the seafood stop. It happens to all of us. The longer you're in business, the more you learn about what you do, and the more you learn about the people that love what you do.
Right.
So,
And how you can continue to grow and and stay with the times of how things change. You know, you keep up with the change.
Well, one of the hardest things for us now is because now I'm at the point where that first goal that I told you that I had we accomplished in the first 4 years, and of course, crab cakes are no longer $10, but they're $20. So
Hmm.
even to do those numbers, I would only have to sell 50. But
Right.
some days I go out and I'll sell 1,000
Hmm.
or 1,200 or whatever I might sell. Well, how many days don't I have to work now to keep my numbers there? That's
Right.
where I am now. So
Right.
now we're at the point where, and we like it. Um, it's kind of amazing. People would not even really understand how amazing it can be. Like I will go and do a 3 hour little lunch gig at Howard County General Hospital and then pop over to the Evergreens 55 community for another couple of hours, and I could have a $4,000 day.
Right. And
And
very, very
that's
easy.
5 hours of work. Yeah, I have to drive for an hour and a half,
Right.
but I'm happy on my way there because I'm on my way to work and I love what I do,
I,
and I'm happy on my way home
you say you
because
love what you do. There, I think you said it. You love what you do, man. That is great.
yeah,
Yep.
we don't all get that, but we all should hope to strive for being able to create that which we would love to do. But you can only create that when you spent enough time doing enough of the things you never want to do again.
Right. How'd Oprah say it? Do what you have to do till you do what you want to do. You know.
Yeah, well, even when you're doing what you want to do, there's a lot of stuff that you got to do.
It's still
Like
there, right?
with the regulations, but it's like, how do you want to look at it as you're approaching it? As a pain in the
Exactly.
patootie, or just something, an obstacle you have to overcome.
Part of
Uh,
doing business, right?
exactly. And for us, this is, I have never, ever created in all the businesses I've opened for people or done anything this simple. The only thing I've ever wasted on any given day is lettuce. If I cut too much lettuce for the crab cake sandwich, that's it.
Lettuce.
That's the only waste I ever had.
And that's not
So
really a big deal. It's
that's nothing.
yeah, yeah,
Not
right,
compared to the kind of waste there is in a restaurant environment, and
right,
and the things you have to turn. I
right.
mean, I don't have a sous chef. I don't have none of the prepping. And it's funny because we even reconsider doing very big events like seafood festivals, etc., things like that. We are
Hmm.
reconsidering them because they want you to be at a place at 7 in the morning. They said everybody can be set up and ready to go because the VIPs will come at 11, and then the gates open at 12, and then you're working until 8 o'clock at night.
Right,
Well, I'll get somewhere at 7, and I'm drinking cappuccinos and reading newspapers until 20 till 12 because it only takes 20 minutes for my first batch to come out of the oven.
man. That's
So,
great.
to me, time is money.
Yeah.
And I spend all of that time, and I'll make as much money as I do, a double header, where I hit the 55 community and hit, I mean, I have these communities that I go to. I'll be in a church parking lot behind the school. And
Hmm.
everybody in that neighborhood knows that I am there on the third Thursday of every single month. And you would be amazed at the people that come out and the type of numbers that I can do.
Right,
It's just a beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be harder than. I don't have to be there every morning till 2 a.m. I want to do that stuff anymore. But,
right,
I had to do that. I had to open at 11 for lunch and, all of those kind of things. Pick up the kids and then my husband would take them home and, you'd stay till closed and just all of that. It
right.
was so overwhelming.
Yeah,
And you didn't make any money,
right.
you
That's the
know?
thing. If it's not, you put the time in, but it's the money is not there with the time. It's got to
We
make
work our
sense. You
patooties
know,
off to take care of the people we love. And what do we give up? Time with the people we love
I don't think we
because
love.
we
Yep.
don't have the resources. So
Yep.
that, I think that I've, I've overcome that. If we can just keep the pandemics, the natural disasters, cancer,
Right.
and kids on their phone running through stop signs away from me, I will
Oh,
just do
right,
it just fine.
right.
It's
So
crazy.
how do we find you right now?
Well, right now there's no truck out. We are not
Okay.
adverse to take and bake for anyone, and they can find us either by calling. You can call us directly at 410-322-9143.
Okay.
You can like our page on Facebook.
Okay.
You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram. I want folks to know that graciously my sons took care of all my techno stuff. So when I post something on Facebook, it goes to all the other um, social media things. I do not sit by a computer or by my phone when I'm doing what I do looking for people to ask me where I am or how much something is that day, because I'm too busy serving people.
Right.
I don't deal with my technology that way. Call us if you want to know. Our Flash fans, call us. We'll pick up the phone. If you're between where we're going to be, we get it arranged. Because I'm in Bel Air, it's not uncommon. A lot of Flash fans come right to my house and pick up their take and bake. And
Right.
right now that works for us. But hopefully next week I will have found a truck, and I can just get through all the licensing requirements and all that
And
stuff, and
get
I'll
it
be
back on the
up
road.
and running
Yeah.
soon. And just follow me on Facebook. You can
Okay.
send me a message through Facebook. Our email address is there if you want to. If you're interested in having us attend an event or something like that, we only go where we're invited.
Right.
So and I don't pay to go anywhere.
Right.
It's just not what I do.
Right.
Unless it's a fundraiser, and
Yeah.
then we go there. We donate back a
Right.
portion of everything that
That's
we
that's
do.
important. Right. Yeah, definitely.
Well, and there's so many
Yeah.
fun ones. I mean, the Dog Fest out in Ricerstown every year. We do that. We do Toast with a Ghost
Hmm.
for the library system, and I mean the fundraisers. People just love it, and more importantly, they love when they got a beautiful beer or a nice glass of wine. They get a crab cake that tastes like that, and they're just peaking. So, but you're going to see more of
Absolutely.
us in Harford County with the new truck, because we'll have eliminated that issue with the reciprocity. So,
Right. Absolutely.
I
And
mean,
I also have some help for you, as I was
yeah,
talking with a couple of other food trucks. I'm working on something that I did. I'll explain to you off air what I
okay.
did, but it got stolen, which is okay. And I can modify it to do other things, which is I'm going to work on.
Okay,
And I'll
good.
talk about it with you. It'll definitely help with the problem of people finding you.
Beautiful. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
it's
All right.
definitely it's a great idea. And yeah, thank you so much for this great detailed story that I didn't have to ask not one single question except the first one.
Well, I'll leave you with this. My dad's nickname for me used to be Motor Mouth. So,
That's okay, right? I mean, you
it,
just you, it just you just made the flow go, you know.
thank you, Charles. That's
And
very sweet of you.
I appreciate that because I don't have to talk much. You know,
Well,
I just listen to what you had to say, and you know, and our listeners can listen to what you had to say, and hopefully, we'll have some people reaching out to you,
I'd love to hear from him.
calling that number, and yeah,
Beautiful.
and I think you should talk to Hopkins, the brewer, to get on here and do a
Oh yeah, we'll get
interview
back
with
to
me.
Danny. Yep, we
Yeah,
will. And all of the great folks at the health department in Harford County. Now they were working with me on the reciprocity because I was getting ready to do the thing with where I had to the thing in Baltimore County, but they don't know that my truck was flipped because we just finished therapy yesterday. So
gotcha.
yeah. So if they hear this or anybody hears it, they'll know why they haven't heard from us. But we'll be up there soon. So look for us, guys, especially as
Yeah.
springtime comes.
So
And I look forward.
glad you're doing okay from the truck
Thanks, Charles.
flipping, and we'll talk after this podcast.
Sounds good.
And everybody, look out for these flash crab cakes. I can't wait to try them myself. I will definitely be there.
Thanks, Charles.
And I
Talk
will
to you
talk to you
later.
soon. Thank you again,
Thank
and have a
you.
great rest of your day.
All right. Ciao.
Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to the Q.A.C. Team podcast with your host, Charles Luttrell. Today, we took you beyond the restaurant table and into the kitchen with leaders and business owners in your community. For more information, visit us at QACteam.com or Facebook and Instagram at QAC.team. Thanks for listening.